Let's assume that you have to have some kind of surgery to save your life. Maybe you've got, I don't know, a brain aneurysm or something like that, so you need a neurosurgeon. And let's assume that as you're discussing the pre-surgical thing, that the doctor or nurse you're talking with tells you, oh, by the way, the surgeon who's going to perform your procedure has been accused of messing around with teenagers. Now, my question to you is, how much of a factor is that in who you want to perform a life-saving procedure? You with me on this? You've got a guy, it's based on what's happening in the news, obviously. Let me say, first of all, the number here is 663-1270, 663-1270. This is SuperTalk 1270. My name is Jim Walsh, filling in today for the housing guys who took the week off. I think Greg Larson is in Cleveland, isn't he? Isn't Greg a delegate? I'm sure we'll hear a lot about that when he gets back. I want to hear his take on the whole Ted Cruz thing last night. Oh, what a train wreck. And you got to love that Ted Cruz. Just got to love it. I mean, that guy truly is Nixon without the warmth. You know what I mean? I think you do. All right. Now, back to this issue here. This is just something that popped into my head. And, you know, sometimes things pop into your head and they work out pretty well as topics for conversation. Sometimes they don't. We'll see how it plays out. And please don't think I'm making light of any of this. Don't think I'm trying to make a joke out of this, because that would certainly not be appropriate. But we have a story. Federal judge right here in town. Federal judge has agreed to put off the trial for a former Trinity neurosurgeon accused of having inappropriate relationships with two underage, specifically teenage girls. I mention teenage girls because, you know, there are different degrees of this kind of thing. Some transgressions are worse than others. But my question to you is, would you feel comfortable having somebody like this who has been accused of this? Would you feel comfortable having them do a potentially life-saving procedure on you or a member of your family? I was also thinking about this in the context of that guy at the Republican convention, the brain surgeon guy, Carson. Yeah, Carson. Carson is kind of a, how can I put this kindly? In my personal opinion, Ben Carson is kind of a religious nut. And I personally would feel kind of nervous about having an important life-saving procedure done on me by a guy who doesn't even subscribe and give credence to the theory of evolution. Because we're talking about accepting basic scientific principles here. I would not want a Ben Carson operating on me. I don't want him to get into a tight spot and then start getting all religious on me while I'm on the table. That's just a feeling I have. Now, this guy here, the local story here, grand jury indicted this neurosurgeon in June on 7 felony charges. He was going to stand trial in August, but the judge agreed to delay the proceedings, and again, granting the fact that he has not yet been convicted of anything. Theoretically here, if you had to have a surgical procedure done by somebody like this, how comfortable would you feel about that? Or would you actually, let's assume he's the best guy available. I mean, like I say, I would not feel comfortable with a guy like a Ben Carson knowing how he feels about certain aspects of science. I want somebody who's sciencey all the way, preferably. And Ben Carson supposedly is a pretty good surgeon, or so I've heard. Is there such a thing as a neurosurgeon who's not really that good at his job? I always wondered that. That's interesting because you could probably learn a lot from studying how they train these guys. in terms of, is there such a thing as a mediocre brain surgeon? I don't know. But let's assume for the sake of argument that he's the best guy for the job and that it's it's a life-saving procedure. Let's say you've got, I don't know, like a brain aneurysm. And the best person available to take care of it is somebody with something like this on their record, or maybe they're getting ready to stand trial for it. Am I missing something here? Is this something you would have a problem with, or not at all? Maybe number here is 663-1270, 663-1270. A couple of lighter things coming up I want to get to. We got a story out of Australia, more of what they call PC, politically correct stuff, a term I kind of shy away from because it's been beaten into the ground. But we got a story from Australia where clapping has been banned at a primary school. You can no longer, if you're in the primary school here, if you're in the third grade at this Australian school, you can no longer applaud for somebody. They have introduced silent cheering or pulling excited faces. Apparently that's a thing to these people. And punching the air. Woo! Except you can't actually go, woo! You got to do it silently, like a mime punching the air. Yay! You can sit there and go, yay, but you can't actually make any noise. Silent cheering. I guess because they were concerned that somebody would be hurt if the class applauded and it wasn't for them, so they didn't want that to happen. How ridiculous is this stuff? I mean, come on. We'll get to that in just a bit, but in case you're just tuning in, you're wondering where the housing guys are, Dave and Greg and Big Joe and the whole gang. They all had commitments this week, and spoke with Dave Floor earlier in the week, or corresponded with him by Facebook, and he asked me to fill in and do something and try not to blow up the station in the process, so I'm trying not to do that, but I thank Dave for his graciousness there, allowing me to do this. It's SuperTalk 1270 and SuperTalk1270.com. Would you have a problem with a neurosurgeon who was accused of sex crimes? Would you have a problem with this guy doing a life-saving procedure on you or a member of your family? And again, we're not presuming he's guilty necessarily. He's entitled to a trial by jury. He isn't yada, 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 so forth, so on and so forth. But just knowing what we know about this situation, would you feel comfortable with a guy like this? He is a neurosurgeon, and presumably he's trained to do the job. But do you really want him? Well, what if it's your kid with an aneurysm, and he's the guy, and theoretically, they say, this is the best guy for the job. How'd you feel about that? Just wondering. What you think about that. Number here is 663-1270, 663-1270. Love to hear from you. It's SuperTalk 1270 and SuperTalk1270.com. With more conversation, your calls coming up.
Right now, 82.
The home for ABC News at the top of the hour is SuperTalk 1270.
Yes, KISS coming to the State Fair this year. State Fair opens this weekend. Gene Simmons fell off the stage the other day, but apparently he's okay. He's going to be there. He'll be fine. SuperTalk 1270, SuperTalk1270.com. Okay, let's assume you have a family member with, say, something like a brain aneurysm or some kind of condition requires potentially life-saving surgery from a neurosurgeon. And let's assume that the neurosurgeon that they say is the most qualified for the job is somebody like this fellow here in town who is awaiting trial for the accusation of messing around with teenage girls. See, the article here is kind of deceptive. It says children, then it says that it clarifies it says teenage girls. To me, there's a difference there, but nonetheless, the basic question is, if this was the guy that they were going to have do the procedure on your family, your kid, would you feel comfortable with that? I think I would be all right with it. I think I'd be all right with it because, again, we're talking about his ability to do his job, and that's one thing. I would not feel comfortable with somebody like a Ben Carson doing a procedure on me or my family member because his crazy religious beliefs, to me, they're crazy. And to me, that goes directly of the question of how this guy, how accepting he is of basic scientific principles. A guy who doesn't even believe in the theory of evolution is obviously somebody who doesn't have a problem playing fast and loose with the definition of things scientific. I want somebody who is uncompromisingly scientific in doing my surgical procedure. If he's accused of a crime, and again, this other guy, he hasn't been... Are you with me on this? The question is, you've got a neurosurgeon here who's accused of these crimes, this local guy. How comfortable would you be in having him do assuming he was allowed to continue doing his job, which is to be a neurosurgeon, how comfortable would you be with having him do a procedure on a member of your family? Is that something you would have a problem with? Number here is 663-1270, 663-1270. Or is this all just a tempest in a teapot? Much ado about nothing, as it were. Yeah, they're showing the plane down this weekend. Hi, guys. A little shout out there to Dan Rogers and the gang. 663-1270. I get your thoughts on that. It's SuperTalk 1270. It's a special Thursday edition of the Tuesday edition of Bizman Weekly. Sitting in for all the housing guys this week. Thank you, gentlemen, for allowing me the opportunity to say the kind of stuff I like to say on the airwaves. And hopefully take a few calls about it. By the way, we do a lot of stories, a lot of things we talk about, we do post on our SuperTalk 1270 website. We would love to have you as a friend on Facebook. Just go to the go to your Facebook thing there with your SuperTalk 1270 webpage. Friend us up there and check out the website for stories and places where you can comment there as well. SuperTalk1270.com. And the other story we're looking at here, and I'm trying to remember, there's probably some stuff when I was a kid. It wasn't, well, it's been a while. 50 years ago, I was in, fourth grade, roughly. I don't remember anything quite as goofy as this. I do remember the teacher not allowing us to bring, toys in general, but like toy guns were definitely frowned upon even 50 years ago. This was the 60s. This was the era of assassinations. And I think one day some kid, well, it was me, I brought a James Bond type pistol, toy pistol, to school to show somebody. And the teacher insisted on, impounding it and putting it in her desk for the day and gave it back into the day. I said, don't bring that back. Okay, fine. Take it home. Don't bring it back. All right. And I mention this because I found a story here about clapping being banned at a Sydney, Australia primary school. Instead, they have introduced the concept of silent cheering. You can, you can look happy, I guess. We'll pump your fist in the air and go, woo, except you can't actually make the noise. I know. This comes, by the way, after several schools in Oz, the land down under, have banned hugging. In April, hugging was banned at one primary school, and children were told to find other ways to show affection. The principal said nothing in particular had caused hugging to be replaced by high-fiving or a knuckle handshake I think that's what they're calling it, a fist bump, right? The old Obama fist bump there. Boom. Yeah. Apparently that's okay. But he says in this current day and age, we are really conscious about protecting kids. I'm not going to do the Australian accent. No, I'm not. I don't do it. I'm not going to butcher that. But he does say in this current day and age, we are really conscious about protecting kids and teaching them from a young age that you have to be cautious. Isn't this just going a little bit over the line into Lake Silly here? Are we knee deep in Lake Stupid? Here it seems that way. And the thing is, let me see here if I'm misreading this. Oh, here we are. See, the ban on clapping. It doesn't say anything here about this being prompted by a specific incident where a child was offended because somebody else did something that got applause. This is something they just kind of came up with because we don't want to hurt their little feelings. Let me tell you something. Kids are pretty resilient. Kids are evil when you come right down to it. You think we've got this thing going. I don't know if it's a fallout from the old the old philosophy of the noble savage, where man in his uncivilized state is just a noble savage and is totally innocent. Well, I've never bought that for 1 minute. I'm not talking about a religious thing here. I'm saying that kids are savages, and there's nothing noble about it. You want to know what kids are really like when you strip away all the adult stuff and all the imposed behavior. You think kids are these sensitive little flowers that are going to wither away and die if they're offended in the least. Yeah, go reread Lord of the Flies and come back and talk to me about that. Yeah, I mean that's how I remember school. I don't remember school probably the way my parents and teachers remember me going to school. Oh, the shining schoolboy, creeping like a snail unwillingly to school, isn't he just darling? Yeah, but we were evil. Well, come on. Kids are evil. Lord of the Flies, man, come on. And they're concerned about hurting a kid's feelings because somebody applauds another kid? What the hell's up with that? That's goofy. Come on. We know how kids are. Yeah, I mean, there's always in The Simpsons, it would be Milhouse. You always got that one kid who is overprotected by his parents. And yeah, he probably will be offended if the sun doesn't come up in the morning. If it's a cloudy day, he's going to hurt his feelings. Well, what are you going to do? You going to ban the rain? I don't know. But it's kind of goofy. School bans clapping, allows students silent cheers or air punching. But only when the teachers agree. That's very important. The teachers have to agree to it. Hey. Screw it. Where's my propeller hat? SuperTalk 1270. Number here is 663-1270. 663-1270. Coming up. We're going to talk about the breaching of wind on airplanes. Yes. I know you've been waiting all day for this. And we'll get to that in just a bit.
Right now, 82.
Here's Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons on SuperTalk 1270.
What'd you say now?
It's a gas!
You ever been on an airplane and somebody lets one rip? What if it's you? We're going to talk about that. Oh, that's not what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. SuperTalk 1270, supertalk1270.com. Thank you, Alfred E. Newman, wherever you are. I actually came across a great write-up on the internet about this. You ever feel the urgent need to, when you're, it's kind of a new version of the Mile High Club, right? like air travel isn't unpleasant enough. Sitting up there in that big old giant flying bus, stuck in a tin can like a sardine, and on top of that, somebody decides to get a little airy, if you know what I mean. Decides to, experience a bit of turbulence, as it were, and is airing their discord. Worst experience I ever had in my life in that regard was on Southwest Airlines. God, I hate South. And it's not so much the fact that it was Southwest Airlines. To me, it's just that I don't like Southwest Airlines anyway. I utterly despise the service on Southwest Airlines. I will actually go out of my way to avoid flying Southwest. I think they're horrible. You know, calling it a flying bus is an insult to stinky, sweaty buses, to bad bus rides. I'd rather take a bad bus ride than fly Southwest. Hell, I'd rather walk on all fours to where I got to go across the country than fly Southwest Airlines. But I just associate it because, being on Southwest wasn't bad enough. I happened to be on a flight where somebody just let one loose, and, oh, man, it was not pretty. Think about it. You're flying out of a town like Bismarck where you got a lot of guys who eat things like cheese and bratwurst and sauerkraut, which is probably not generally a good idea if you're going to be flying anyway. Come on, you got to modify your diet a little bit. You know what to do. Anyway, God, how do you deal with that? Nearly all of us at one time or another has experienced this, ourselves or somebody nearby. There are some tricks of the trade that flight attendants will use to minimize the lingering after effect. Although nothing is foolproof, one tactic, turning down the temperature. Apparently, our sense of smell is reduced slightly in cooler air. I didn't know that. Another method is to discreetly shake a coffee filter bag near the source of the aroma in order to neutralize it. If you ever go into a lavatory on an airplane and you find a coffee bag sitting in there, it's not because somebody was trying to make coffee in there. Okay, they were something else. Something else was definitely percolating in that flight. Now, there are ways to keep you from, there are ways to make sure that you're not the one who dealt it before you smelt it. You can do your part to reduce in-flight flatulence, and starts with, of course, what you eat. And this is generally good advice anyway, because who wants to feel bloated while they're flying in an airplane? Flying, like I say, it's generally unpleasant enough. So it all starts with what you consume before you get on the airplane or while you're on the airplane. Flying does tend to make you feel bloated. I don't know, maybe it's the air pressure thing. It does something else too, and this I was not aware of. Flying, according to this study, numbs your taste buds. And the way airlines compensate for this is by increasing the salt content and the seasoning in your food to make it more palatable. It's probably why they give you those salted peanuts. Now, this may make the food go down better, but it also makes it more likely to make its presence known again at a later time, so to speak. So a good rule of thumb would be pack your own lunch. Keep it light on the salt, easy on the fat. All the fruits, veggies, maybe some hummus. It's not bad. Popcorn, nuts, unsalted or low salt. These are all foods that will keep you full and more or less comfortable. Try to avoid the carbonated beverages. Avoid the beer. That's a good idea. All that gas, all that gas that goes in has got to come out somewhere, right? And if you're seated in a premium cabin, you're looking forward to that big fancy meal, don't go for every course. Maybe opt for the lean meats and the fish, or even the vegetarian option. I can't believe I'm saying this, but stay away from the gassier veggies. Broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, not good. And for the love of criminy, French fries, no. You may really hanker for French fries, especially on an airplane, because, like I say, you like that oily, salty taste of something while you're flying. But believe me, they do have a way of coming back to haunt you. Now, apparently there was a study, a major study on this subject, that was published in a medical journal in New Zealand. And the researchers found that doing this, letting one rip, so to speak, on an airplane is not only more comfortable, though, but it's good for your health. However, they concluded that the same did not go for the pilots. If a pilot lets one go, the co-pilot may be affected by it, which again can reduce the safety on board the flight. In other words, when it's time to deplane, you might want to just run past the captain as quickly as possible. Hey, it's an unfortunate part of life. I guess we just have to live with it, but there are steps you can take to minimize the problem. See, aren't you glad you tuned in today for great little tidbits of information like that? Really? Think of what you would miss if you haven't tuned the show in this morning. All right. Boy. SuperTalk 1270, SuperTalk 1270 AM. By the way, if you've got a great story, I'm not sure I want to hear it, but anyway, the number is 663-1270, 663-1270. And again, to recap from earlier in the hour, we were talking about, as a result of the story locally, about the neurosurgeon who's going to trial for allegedly, and I say that because, yeah, he's going to trial, innocent or proven guilty and all that. All right, I know what the lawyer's on my case about this. But, yeah, it's an accusation. He's going to trial for it. But this guy's a neurosurgeon. It's one thing to feel a little nervous about having a guy like this in your house to, paint your bedroom or something. But what if you need some life-saving surgery? What if you have like a brain aneurysm and this is the guy to do it? They say this is the guy most qualified. However, you should know that he's awaiting trial for this, that, and the other. How comfortable would you feel about that? I'm just wondering, is that an issue for you? It just occurred to me. I'm reading this story the other day, and I'm thinking, well, this guy's a neurosurgeon. Would I want him working on my kid? And the conclusion I came to is, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I would have a problem with somebody who didn't believe in science, somebody who's kind of had some weird religious ideas. I'd be afraid, like a Ben Carson kind of guy. That guy ran for president, remember the surgeon, and it turned out he was had some goofy religious ideas. To me, they're goofy anyway. Of course, I'm not religious at all, so. But even out of the mainstream, I would not want a guy like that doing my surgery, because I'd be afraid he'd get into a tight spot and then he'd just stand there and start praying over the damn thing. No, I don't want anybody doing that. I want science. I want solid, pure D science. I don't want anybody praying over me in the operating room, in the OR. Nothing would make me feel worse. Nothing would scare the bejabbers out of me more than lying on the table, and as I'm going under, I see the surgeons all gathering together and holding hands to pray before they start to... No, don't pray. Do your damn jobs. God, I hate that. It's like, God saved him. Well, I think the doctors might have had something to do with it. Funny, it never works the other way. They never say, well, the doctors did a great job, but God decided to kill this guy anyway. Funny people never think that way. No, I don't want you people to say, oh, it's great, you're not going to pray over me. No, don't pray over me before, opening me up to fix my innards, okay? Don't do that. Don't do that. I don't want you. If that's your idea of doing something constructive, don't do that. No Ben Carson, none of that stuff for me. However, if they're good at their job and they're awaiting trial for something, you must assume they're going to be on their best behavior in the OR. You would hope so. And it's something that doesn't go to their ability to do their job. And yeah, I'm fine with it. I wouldn't have a problem with it. That's my position. And I'm sticking to it, at least for now. Those are my opinions. If you don't like them, I do have others. Right. Number here is 663-1270, 663-1270. It's Super Talk 1270. SuperTalk1270.com. More conversation coming up.
Right now, 82.
The Red River Farm Network. Ag News is here on Super Talk 1270.
Hey, you get what you give, right? Eat a big plate of beans before you get on an airplane. Karma has a way of evening the score. Ugh. How radical. Super Talk 1270, supertalk1270.com. Jim Walsh on your I started to say your 10 in a row station. No, yeah. 10, yes, your religious station, 10 commandments in a row. 10 commandments every hour on the hour. All right. North Dakota State Fair beginning its 9-day run this weekend. I haven't been to the State Fair since the year I got here. And it's not because I didn't want to go. You get to a certain age and you just don't get around to doing it. But I did like the State Fair. The one time I went with my then future wife. We had a good time. It was the year that Alice Cooper and Nugent were there. I'm not a big Ted Nugent fan. If you ever sat through an hour of Nugent, maybe there are some people who really get into that, and that's fine. But to me, a little bit of the Nuge goes a long way, musically and otherwise. Alice Cooper was great, though. He came on after the Nuge, and he came on right as it was getting dark, which is perfect for the Alice Cooper presentation. I'd be going back to what, around 2003, maybe, 2004, something like that? I think the main thing is the music acts, they're okay. They're just not my cup of tea. Kenny Chesney, fine artist, not really somebody who floats my boat. Kiss, legendary band. Again, it's not something that I was not a member of the Kiss Army. I was never a diehard fan of the band. They had a couple of okay records. I love that record they did where the guy sounded like Rod Stewart. Hard Luck Woman. Hard Luck Woman. That was a good song. The rest of it is okay. Yeah, that's about it. For me to really want to go to the music show, it had to be something like an Alice Cooper, like a classic rock and roll show, but something really compelling, like Alice Cooper. They had the Rolling Stones one year. Have they ever tried to get the Rolling Stones? Well, they haven't since I've been here. Aerosmith. Well, Aerosmith was there one year, right? Man, it basically acts like that. That's where my head is at. But, of course, the other reason you go is for the food, and that ties right in with what we were just talking about with the airplane thing. Let's see here. Walleye on a stick. Now, I don't eat seafood. Seafood doesn't really agree with me, but for me to eat seafood, it's got to be prepared a very specific way, and even then I'll just kind of pick at it. Walleye on a stick. Maybe that's appetizing to you, and if it is, good for you. I'm not saying it's stupid to be to like that kind of thing, but I'm just saying that I don't get it personally. Walleye on a stick. Sushi. Well, they have sushi at the State Fair. That's interesting. Sushi to me is kind of like yuppie food. It's bourgeois liberals from the big city eat sushi. My wife loves sushi, by the way. And again, I just have an issue with seafood in general. Chicken, it's got to be white meat, got to be breast for me to eat it. And it's got to be no fat on it whatsoever. I'm an anti. I just don't like the taste of it. If I can see the fat on it, if it's ground up in a hamburger, that's one thing. But if I can actually see the fat on it, I won't put it anywhere near my yap. I know I'm a very, very picky eater. What I like, I will shovel into my yap. But what I don't like, I just kind of and get that away from me. But there are a lot of good, I love corn dogs. I don't eat that many of them. It's the kind of thing where you just know certain foods are going to come back and haunt you. Corn dogs are one of them, but God, I love them. I love a lot of mustard. Well, I love a lot of mustard on my hot dogs anyway, and my hamburgers. I like that brown deli mustard. You know, the generic brown deli mustard you get at Dan's or at Walmart. It's got to be, for some reason, in my case, my mustard, it has to be brown deli mustard, and it has to be the generic stuff. For some reason, the name brand mustard doesn't cut the mustard for me, so to speak. It's got to be that generic stuff. And I'll just take that and I'll just glop it on. I will just, enough mustard, enough to choke a horse, as my mom used to say. And yes, I do like a little bit of hamburger or hot dog with my mustard. Just glop it on there. Massive amounts of mustard. I always tell them, anywhere I go, if I get a hot dog, hamburger, give me a burger and give me enough. I tell them specifically, I say, give me enough mustard on that thing to choke a Clydesdale. I guess I am a mustard person. I'm a mustard kind of guy. Chinese mustard, well, that's a little bit different. Chinese mustard I can handle a bit more sparingly, but it is really good on a pork egg roll. Anyway, so the State Fair is going to be in town this weekend. And by the way, as usual, we will have all the information going on about what's happening at the State Fair and what's happening all around the region for the weekend. You can find out at SuperTalk1270.com. I got another Pokemon Go story. I think the Pokemon Go thing has pretty much run its course. But I do have one more goofy story here. This is about a woman who got stuck in a tree at a cemetery after she climbed up the tree to chase a Pokemon. Naturally, she was embarrassed. Gee, you think? By the way, they did not print the woman's name here, so she's got that much going for her. Lady, you dodged a bullet on this one, okay? I'm just saying, next time we're going to know who you are. It's going to come back to haunt you. First responders came to the rescue of a young woman who got stuck up a tree playing Pokemon Go inside a Gloucester County, New Jersey cemetery Tuesday night. Fire and Rescue posted a safety message about the woman's plight on their Facebook page as their public safety message of the day, to wit. Pokemon, no. Trying but failing to understand the game. The woman, who police describe as a young adult, climbed a tree inside such and such cemetery to catch a Pokemon. When she couldn't get down, she called 911 and reluctantly admitted when rescuers talked to her that she'd been playing the game. She was a bit embarrassed at that point. Well, I would hope so. Rescuers used a ladder to get the woman down and didn't embarrass her any further by releasing her name. Well, that's not fair. Come on. Anyway, what else we have here? Animal Shelter offers discounts for Pokemon Go. Now, see, a lot of stores are using this in a very savvy way. They're encouraging people to come in and play the Pokemon game in their stores because basically they want more butts in the store. They figure the more people that come in the store, the more chance that maybe while they're in there, they'll buy something. And that's pretty savvy. I talked about this with Marlo Anderson, our tech guy, the other day, how people are taking they're making the lemonade out of the lemons. And this is how you do it. Thieving Magpie, that's what we're going out on. We're getting all Clockwork Orange here. No, let's go with the march. There you go. Bum bum. Your comments welcome at SuperTalk1270.com. Love to hear from you. My thanks again to the gang from the Dakota Housing Network for allowing me to do my thing during their hour while they're away. Well, all the guys will be back next week talking about housing. Greg will be talking about the Republican convention, I'm sure. Telling us some great stories. He usually does have some good stories of those political things. Now we'll get to all that next week. Thanks again. It's Super Talk 1270. I'm Jim Walsh. Until next time, let me just say until next time. So long until next time. Bye.